It was the genesis of all automotive magazines, all the success of Edelbrock and SoCal Speed Shop and Iskandarian. I would say Hot Rods made the magazine interesting. Robert E. Petersen made the magazine, then went out and got those guys to advertise. Now, I remember one time it was Vic Edelbrock, and he would like take an ad for nothing back then, and then you paid for the second one, whatever, just to get you hooked. Edelbrock didn't want to do any work because he was getting so much business he couldn't keep up with it. And if you talk to any of the old timers, none of them would have a business today or have even been in business then without Hot Rod Magazine.
From inside the MotoMan studio, these are extraordinary stories of ordinary folks and how they became the people shaping the car world, the tech world, and our future. Last week I introduced you to my old friend Bruce, who also happens to prove the concept. You meet the nicest people in the car world. Well, we pick up again with Bruce and we start talking about some serious cars that he's collected over the years, how he started the Petersen Automotive Museum with Bob Petersen, and some of the other amazing car folks that he has met and worked with over the years. So now we go back to Bruce Meyer, the emperor of the classic car world.
So I don't think of it as a collection. Every one of these cars...
I have a book that says otherwise.
Well, that's an interesting story to the book. But I bought every car one at a time. Not with the idea that I'm going to put a collection together. My first car was a Gullwing because I loved it. My second car was a 300 SL Roadster. Then I bought a Speedster. And then, so I've always had like a driver car, but then maybe an additional car. In 1970, I bought the 4Cam, and that was the only car I had back then. So that was $10,750.
That's a lot of money in 1970.
It was my net worth. I mean, I literally emptied everything. And the interesting thing is, about 6 months after
Did your mother what the hell are you doing?
At a certain point, your parents just give up. We're going to let Bruce be what he wants to be. My dad, I'd pull up in a car, the house, a lot of stuff he hadn't seen, and he'd just walk out and he said, "Oh my God, what'd you pay for that?" He didn't care if it was a Ford or Ferrari or he just wanted to know, what kind of fool are you? How much did you pay for that?
Did he still have the Windsor in the driveway?
Of course. He never... So he was only just like, how much did you pay for that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought I taught you better. So with the 4Cam, there's a fellow in town named Bill Doheny, and he has Greystone and Doheny.
Oh yeah.
He owns Superior Oil. I mean, he was 76. He was a big time.
Were you instrumental in putting that show together up there?
No, I was a participant. And it was a nice show.
Just so people understand, when we're talking about the show, that's the Doheny estate. It's in the There Will Be Blood.
The city will rent it to anybody because they want the money. It was donated by the Dohenys.
And that's what the movie's about. It's about them.
Oh, yeah, and they all in the water rights and all that stuff. Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
That they were big with Mulholland and Doheny and all that. So, but this is how not smart I was. Follow me on this one. I had the car 6 months, and I can show you an ad because I still have that. A fellow wanted to trade me straight across for a GTO. He had it advertised in the ad for $8,500, and I thought I just paid $10,750 for my car. It might have been worth $10,500 or whatever. Why would I do that? First of all, I was into my chrome wheel period. The GTO didn't have shiny spoke wheels like my car.
Yeah.
And it didn't have roll-up windows.
For the first time ever, we've gotten my very unattractive assistant here has brought over the ad. And oh my God, this really does say $8,500. I don't know which camera can see this better. You know what? You hold it up and that camera
right
will
here,
see.
it's advertised for $8,500, and right above it is a 275 GTB advertised for $10,500. So he wanted me to go back a couple $1,000. Did I look that stupid?
Yeah, I can still see the tattoo. I was born yesterday.
Yeah, I could have been a contender.
Instead of what I am today. A bum.
A bum.
But, okay, most people would agree that you know a thing or two about classic cars. Why is, there are other cars that are rare like this. They made 40 of these things?
Yeah.
There are other cars that they made 40 of. They made 19 Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagatos. Your buddy David Siderick's got how many Zagatos? His Zagato ain't worth what this is.
No.
Why did this become worth so much?
I wish I knew because I would have jumped on earlier. But the GTO, there's like 3 clubs, okay? There's a GTO owners and the McLaren F1 and Testarossa, and HC Alpha. So those are 3 clubs that you have to be a billionaire. You should be a billionaire. You've got HC Alpha, Ferrari GTO, and a McLaren F1. So when you're in those, when you own one of those cars,
one, not all 3, but one.
Well, they're all 3 different clubs.
Yeah.
I have Charlie Nierberg, our friend, owns all 3.
All 3, exactly. Ralph owns 2.
Ralph owns 3.
Oh, he owns 3? I don't know.
Yeah, Ralph has a GTO. He's got a McLaren F1, and he's got an HC Alpha.
But he's owned 2 8Cs.
Yeah.
Ray's got his old 8C.
So any one of these, in other words, if you owned a GTO, then you can go to the GTO reunions, and then you're hanging out with Lawrence Stroll, and you're hanging out with all these mega billionaire, Chip Connor, Rob Walton kind of guys. So if you come knocking on the door with your 4Cam,
yeah, you're a deadbeat. It's like the Chrysler Windsor and the Brown.
That's right. They're going to say, "Well, Bruce, you're a great guy, but you don't have a GTO." So the GTOs is really more of a club.
You're buying into a lifestyle.
Yeah, buying into.
But they didn't know that back in the day. I'm sure Nick Mason didn't realize what he was buying. We bought 2 of them.
And Nick has a couple of these. I think he has an HC Alpha and a McLaren. He's a member of the 3-time.
Yeah, he's that. Talk about a lucky guy, man.
Yeah.
So suffice to say, that's probably your first big car. You just didn't know it was a big car at that point.
100%.
And were you smart enough to say, this is going to be worth something down in 2020, or just, I like it?
When I bought that car, the market was somewhere between 10 and 10.5.
Yeah.
I remember this so well. I paid $10,750 for that car.
Now keep in mind, again, for the audience,
this 1970.
A new Chevy was how much?
Oh God, I don't know.
Half that.
Maybe.
A brand new car.
Yeah.
And this is a crappy old Ferrari.
Yeah. And my house at that time was probably worth $50.
Oh man.
So what I'm saying is, I wanted that car because it belonged to Doheny. I wanted that car because it was original. I had a friend that came in here and says, you just had to steal everything around here. I said, I have never paid retail. I paid more than. I just want the car. I want just the absolute best I can get of that car. I loved Robert E. Petersen in a way. When he bought the museum building, he's an opportunistic buyer. If something's cheap, he'll buy it. Whether it's a gold nugget collection or a great painting or a building. I mean, he just had an eye, and he would buy at the right price.
What was the Petersen Museum before he bought it?
Cebu. Japanese department store. Then it became a discount ladies fashion store called Orbox. And then it was empty for years. And somebody brought it to Petersen as just a bargain. You got to buy this building. So Petersen said, let's make a car museum out of it. So he calls me and he goes, and we're both on the board of Natural History Museum and blah, blah, blah.
What did the Natural History Museum have as part of their collection?
They had automobiles, and they had no place to show them. And it was a mismatch made in heaven, in a way for us and hell for them, because they could care less about cars. It was when we were putting this together, we just grew further and further apart. We had a place for them to display their cars, but
were there any interesting cars, or it was just like people just donated cars?
Some of those kind of things, but they had some interesting cars. They had a Duesenberg.
A good Duesenberg?
Yeah,
or just a Duesenberg?
Murphy disappearing convertible. I mean, not restored, but it won an old one that somebody gave him back in the 40s. Still a Duesenberg. On paper, they said, well, we'll get 1 million people through here at $10 a person, and we're going to make $10 million. And the Natural History Museum's like seeing dollar signs.
Cars are great.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
That fell apart. The honeymoon was over before we even opened our doors.
Now, let's be clear here. Everybody, it's called the Petersen. I mean, it's his name on the door. He owned the building. But you were there from day one helping start it.
Yeah, I was there from day one. And I was kind of the ombudsman, because by the time we got rolling, the Natural History Museum didn't like us at all. They didn't like our management, and they didn't care much for Robert E. Petersen because they'd done a deal that I don't think worked for them. And so I'm the guy that's kind of like, Pete, let's just buy it. And I go to the museum. Don't be too rash. They were going to sell the building. So I'm the guy that went back and forth, kind of keeping them apart and getting the deal done so we would buy
Bob
it.
had the building while he'd already bought the building.
He bought the building. It all went to the Natural History Museum. They owned the building.
So he bought the building and donated it to the...
Well, he didn't donate it. He arranged for it and then gave some seed money, and the Natural History Museum was city bonding.
I see.
They owned it. They owned the whole thing. The whole thing. And they put some of their management in. We had some of our management. At any rate, it was just a disaster.
So then what changed?
So the Natural History Museum had enough, and they wanted out. So they were going to sell it. Home Depot, they had a buyer for the building, and they were going to do the whole deal. They didn't like Petersen. And
because he just was brash, or...
No, but, he could drive a good bargain. He knew how to buy.
Yeah.
So it was just, Petersen's intentions were great, but I think they just couldn't get along.
And are these city planners you're dealing with?
These are other board members of these.
So these are wealthy people.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking big personalities had a problem together.
Yes, and in addition, the museums didn't get along. So the board was made of guys like me and big people around the community.
Yeah.
They just couldn't get rid of that place fast enough.
And what year was this? This was 90 or something?
Yeah, probably around, no, not 90. This would be around late 90s, because we opened in 94.
Yeah.
And it was almost an instant.
This happened after you opened this
Oh, my, yeah.
It was opened and running, and you had
yeah.
this whole train wreck.
Yes.
Got it. This is a good segue. When did you meet Bob Petersen?
So, and that's a good question. I joined a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and Bob Petersen was a member of YPO. And it was here in Los Angeles. And, of course, I knew who Robert E. Petersen was. And then we lived near each other. We lived close to each other. I was such a fan of Hot Rod Magazine. We were friends in YPO. And we were on the board of the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles together. And Robert E. Petersen was a Renaissance man. He grew up in Barstow with nothing. But he was a very good buyer, and he built the magazine, and we could go on and on
Did he have a business before the magazines?
No.
So the magazine really was his crucible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
talk about timing as well.
Perfect timing. He had a I forget the name of the camera. I want to say Speedflex or some fancy camera. He worked for Paramount, I think, in public relations. So he knew how to work a camera. Probably learned during the war. So he was their PR guy. And then some of his friends said, "We're going out to the dry lakes. Bring your camera," because he had, it wasn't his camera, but he had access to a camera. So he started photographing cars, hot rods at the dry lakes. So then in '48, he and a buddy of his thought, we got something going here. They made a newsletter for the dry lakes guys.
Yeah.
And back in the early days, every community had a roadster club, a hot rod club, but they were roadsters. Roadsters were what people wanted. And so he made this newsletter for all the different roadster clubs, and it became, a timing association, and he did the newsletter, and then they thought, this hot rod thing kind of has legs. And so Petersen, being the brilliant man that he was, decided he was going to start Hot Rod Magazine. And if you look at the early Hot Rod magazines, they look like Life magazine. It's black and white cover with the Life and the red and the Hot Rod. So he just picked up the look of Life, and he did Hot Rod Magazine, and the rest is history. I mean, it just became, if you talk to Alex or anybody, nobody in the hot rod world would be anything today without Hot Rod Magazine. It was the genesis of all automotive magazines, all the success of Edelbrock and SoCal Speed Shop and Iskandarian, all those guys.
Would you say that they worked off each other? Like those guys, like Iski and Pichaporis, those guys wouldn't have gotten big without Robert Petersen, and Robert Petersen wouldn't have gotten big without them.
No. I would say hot rods made the magazine interesting. Mm-hmm. Robert E. Petersen made the magazine, then went out and got those guys to advertise. Now, I remember one time it was Vic Edelbrock, and he would take an ad for nothing back then, and then you paid for the second one, whatever, just to get you hooked. Edelbrock didn't want to do anymore because he was getting so much business he couldn't keep up with it. And if you talk to any of the old timers, none of them would have a business today or have even been in business then without Hot Rod Magazine.
Was it a quick start?
Yes.
The thing started, and all of a sudden it blew up.
Yeah. Instant success.
Was there any competitors back in the day?
None.
So he had the business to himself.
He invented it. And then he came up, then he thought, well, there's life here outside of hot rodding, so we did Motor Trend. And he really started this whole genre of magazines.
He did.
And made a fortune.
So when did you meet him?
I met him in the late 80s. We were good social friends. We did some traveling around together. Our wives were friends. I mean, he was a good friend. And by the way, he was a billionaire dude, and I'm, like in the 70s.
You're just hawking like crystal.
We weren't on the same level. I was just a huge fan, and I was a friend, and then I moved into his neighborhood, and then we became involved in this professional group, Young Presidents, and then we became more social friends, and we became pretty darn good friends.
Okay, let's take this as a teaching moment for a minute. Tell me whether you agree or disagree with the statement. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. True or not true?
Do I understand that?
Okay, show me who your friends are.
If I had the worst friend of people and the best of people, I'm kind of like,
Maybe average is a bad term. Maybe average is a bad term.
Are you saying hang out with the people you want to emulate, or
that you want to become?
I gotcha. No.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think you're your own person. Here's another thing I've lived my life by. Because I started in a very modest situation, I had no expectations in life. I mean, none. And when your expectations are low, every day is a good day. Because you're always exceeding your expectations. It's interesting because I was just watching last night, a friend of mine sent me a profile of Pete Shapur, SoCal Speed Shop.
Good Greek.
Good Greek.
Good Greek.
Great Greek.
Absolutely.
And he was saying to Barry Maguire, he said, Bruce Meyer's kind of an interesting...
Not Greek, but great guy.
He said, Bruce Meyer, we're at an event, and Bruce Meyer is talking to this guy who said he was in trucking. He said, I knew the guy, and he had one pickup truck and a trailer, and he transported cars for people. He said it wouldn't have mattered to Bruce if he owned Swift Trucking or Hunt Brothers Trucking or a one truck and one trailer guy.
Yeah.
It's bringing people together. That's been my greatest joy in the Petersen Automotive Museum. I was the founding chairman. I chaired it for 10 years. I'm still vice chairman. I'm probably responsible for most of the board members being on the board. I'm active. I devote a lot of my time to that.
Talking about the people, how did you get the whole Checkered Flag 200 started?
Right. This came out of the Natural History Museum. Because I could see when we started putting the museum together, this was just becoming a downer. Because they had no motion towards the car at all. And it was getting less and less all the time. I said, we got to bring some people in here. That share the passion.
Yeah.
So my wife belonged to a group at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which is our music center, cultural center, and so I thought, I'm going to start a group, and I'm going to call it the Checkered Flag 200. I'm going to get 200 people to give $1,000 a year to be a member of this group, and then I'm going to make it a fun deal for them. I can't tell you how many people said, you're never going to get 200. You're never going to get somebody to give $1,000 a year. You might one time get it, but this is not going to work. Today, we have 630 members. It's $1,700 a year, so we raise over $1 million just in dues, and it's the coolest car club in the world. And when I started it, I had Carol Shelby as a member, Phil Hill, Dan Gurney, Parnelli Jones, all those guys. And by the way, Parnelli still, and Bob Petersen, everybody pays dues. I don't care if you're Parnelli Joe and you pay. So Parnelli has paid dues every year, including me. I pay my dues every year. So there's not one honorary free member.
And where does that money go? Or does it go to the museum?
Right into the operating fund of the Petersen.
So this brings up a really interesting point. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a proud New Yorker. Lived in multiple countries. But even as a guy growing up in New York, I knew about the Petersen. There's very few car museums that have that kind of cachet. Why is that?
I think there are very few car museums, generally.
Okay.
And some car museums are focused around Model Ts. I mean, the and some of them are just big collections. I remember the Harrah's Museum, which had 1,500 cars. And as car crazy as I was, he had like 3 or 4 buildings. I don't remember how many.
Yeah.
When I finished the first building, I was ready to go home. I was like,
it's too much because they're all just parked next to it.
Yeah.
You're not telling me a story. You don't buy a car, you buy a story.
That's right. And the Petersen, I think we've done a good job of telling that story, putting our exhibits together, making it a fun place. Now, we completely redid the place, 5 years ago.
Yeah, you threw my ass out when you redid it.
Were you one of the casualties?
I was one of the casualties. We were doing this there, and then, we're closed, so bye.
Oh,
you don't have to go home, but you can't be here.
Darn, well, you could have come here.
Actually, I'm going to start using it. Yeah.
It's yours, George. Anytime. So we reinvented it. David Sidoric, who I actually put on the board from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We were all looking at this tired old place that had been there 20 years. We had dioramas, which came directly from the Natural History Museum. Like, they have dioramas of lions.
Didn't someone buy them? Someone bought them and put them in their collection, like the whole Main Street thing.
Well, no, you're talking the Petersen one.
The Petersen one, yeah.
I'm going back to the mindset of the Natural History Museum, where you show a lion in the tree eating a antelope or something. So once you've seen it, you don't go back.
I've got that in my living room, yeah.
That's right. Once you've seen it, you don't go back. And that's what we were finding out at the Petersen. People had seen our diorama.
Yeah.
They'd seen our Main Street, the one you talked about, which was great. I mean, how many times can you look at it and go, that's cool? So we were finding that people were just not returning to the Petersen. They were coming there for the first time and then not coming back because they'd been there, done that.
Yeah. So
that's when David Sidoric and myself and a couple others decided we either got to go big or leave, because we're just not growing, we're not cutting edge. So David took it upon himself, and I was part of the committee, but David did the heavy lifting and a lot of the architectural rejuvenation, which is so stunning.
Talk about a 180.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an incredible
change. And then we
change.
completely did the interior, and we came rolling out about 5-6 years ago, all new, and we have just done nothing but grow and grow and grow and grow and grow.
Instead of a word from our sponsors, a brief interruption. As you can imagine, all of us here are incredibly excited about the return of Inside the MotoMan studio, so much so we'd like to bring you more guests more frequently, and in the future make some of these live town hall events. So to that end, we'd like to ask you a favor. Can you help us get the word out? There are 2 really easy ways to do this. First and foremost, can you share the show, Inside the MotoMan studio, on your favorite social platforms? That includes Reddit. I would argue Reddit is even more important than the usual suspects. And then second, this is now a podcast. So go to your favorite podcast directory and subscribe, rate, and review Inside the MotoMan studio. However you choose to help us, we'd be greatly appreciative. And now, back to this incredible story.
So let's go back to your collection a bit.
Yep.
Okay. You started with that 4-cam. Stunning. Interesting color, no doubt about it. What are some milestones in your, because you had a lot of cars, but what are some milestones over the years you've had?
Well, I've kind of always had a Gullwing. I think those are very important cars.
Amazing cars.
So I mean, I could go from, the last 50 years of collecting, but I think I've tried to collect important cars, and like you said earlier, George, it's all about the story. I like cars that tell a story. About 25 years ago, I decided that hot rods were just the most underappreciated, misunderstood category of cars and enthusiasts. And I'd always wanted a hot rod. So back in like the late 70s, early 80s, I bought a Highboy. And then I started going to hot rod events, and the enthusiasm was just like fabulous. And I started thinking about how important hot rods were to the automobile world we have today, and the car clubs. I mean, whether it's Hillborn Injection or Phil Remington, who helped Shelby win Le Mans, or Parnelli Jones, and these were all roadster hot rod guys. And so I made it kind of a mission in life that I wanted to make sure everybody understood how important hot rods were to everything automotive that we have today. It was the genesis of everything. And those were the guys that came back from the war.
Okay.
with all this new technology, a little saved up combat pay, and wanted to live their dreams with cars. It would have been me if I'd have been one of them, but I wanted to tell their story. And
Why do you think the car industry today owes a debt of gratitude to hot rod, in your estimation? Hot rods, not hot rods.
Yeah. Because modifying cars, making them faster, making them more aerodynamic, whether it's at Bonneville or on the street. If you were an enthusiast in the 40s, your only option were hot rods.
So
you could go to work for General Motors or Ford, but your passion were in hot rods. So
the tail's wagging the dog. They led the industry.
Yes.
The grassroots led the industry.
Yeah.
And did you a lot of these guys you're talking about, like Pete Chaporis, Parnelli Jones, who I've had on this show, I met through you. I was lucky enough to meet them through you.
And by the way, it was through this hobby and through this passion that I met them. I never would have met my heroes. Dan Gurney, I've got a little shrine to him in the back. I've got a picture of his Chop 5 window.
Unbelievable.
I
met him in this very room.
Yeah. Bob Bondurant was a hot rodder. I mean,
But this brings up a very important point.
Yeah.
Did you know these guys back on their ascent? When you started with the 4Cam, that kind of stuff? Or did you know them? Did you get to know them once you were like, okay, I want to put hot rods on the map?
That's when I really got to know them better.
Oh, so they were already established at that point.
Oh, yeah. I had nothing to do with their success or nothing to do with...
Okay.
It was just... And they were... If somebody just said, someday you're going to know Dan Gurney or Parnelli Jones, I'm thinking like, come on. It never happened. And so I've been so fortunate, to know Chip Ganassi and...
Because they're coming to see the emperor of the classic car world.
Oh, my God.
That's why you're the emperor.
Yeah, I'm so far from an emperor.
So, okay, now the hot rod is one pinnacle along the way of your collecting. Give me like two other examples.
So then what happened, when I was in college, our fraternity advisor had a short wheelbase Berlinetta, SWB.
Are you serious? In college?
In college.
Oh,
no,
my God.
he was graduate. He was an alumni advisor.
Okay. Oh, so he
didn't have he came. He was probably in his 30s or 40s.
Okay.
So, anyways, I'd always loved that car.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
that's just.
And so when I turned 60, Octane magazine had just come out. And I saw an ad for that car, and I thought, oh my God, that thing's for sale. So that was my 60th birthday present to myself, and then that was a major step up for me.
That wasn't a $10,000 Ferrari even 20 years ago.
The most expensive thing I've ever bought.
I could more than this building. Yeah,
more than buildings, more than anything.
Yeah.
And then I started doing the homework, and I realized what made that car so special was Le Mans. So then I started doing all the research on Le Mans. And then I became like taken by Le Mans. So we have 5 Le Mans winners. And I mean that's the one category that still moves me today is Le Mans. You've got Ford versus Ferrari, which tells a story and lets a lot of people know how important Le Mans is. Le Mans is everything. And I mean, it's the Super Bowl, World Series, World Cup, Olympic Games. It's all about Le Mans. So that was my first Le Mans car. Then I bought the Le Mans Corvette, the Cunningham Corvette. And I don't remember how it all came together. But then the Cobra was bought to run Le Mans, the first Cobra. The 910 behind us won Le Mans in '69. The Corvette won in 2009. The Bizzarini won in '65. When you read that book, by the way, they did that exhibit, which I was opposed to. They did it in my gallery, and I said, let's find another collection. And they said, no, we want to do yours. And so I said, okay. And we want to do a book. And I said, okay. So they did the book, Winning Numbers. I don't even think of these cars as mine. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I am just the custodian.
Kind of like a Patek or a Rolex.
Yeah, that's right.
You're just the custodian for the next generation.
So I'm glad I was able to save some of these cars, hot rods included, cars that might be forgotten.
Well, speaking about forgetting cars, we're forgetting about one. What car is supposed to be there when I first came here?
Yeah.
What car is that?
The 935.
The 935.
And that won Le Mans in '79. And that's got a great story.
Tell it. Give us the abridged version of that story.
Well, that car won overall at Le Mans. And as the picture behind us shows, it beat all the prototypes, the factory entries, the 936, it beat them all. I think you're going to the Whittington thing, right?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that the story? Okay, so it was owned by the Whittingtons. The Whittingtons were caught. They went to prison.
For the avoidance doubt, drug dealers.
Yeah, drug dealers.
Drug
right.
dealers.
They were the most prolific.
Yeah.
And I have met the Whittingtons. And by the way, if those guys were amazing Indy drivers. They owned an Indy team. They raced unlimited aircraft. These guys, whatever they did, they were going to be good and successful. They just chose drug dealing, and they were very good and successful, but then, like all those things, they have their day. So they went to prison. And then about 3 years ago, they got re-indicted for money laundering through jet charter, however all that works.
Yeah.
So Bruce Canepa, Albert Arciero, Charlie Nierberg, Chip Connor, we're all trading these emails about the Whittingtons going down.
Yeah.
So then Albert says, why don't we play a prank on Bruce Meyer and let's seize the car.
Yeah.
And so they were going to come here to my garage where it sat right there and then have somebody dressed up like a DEA agent and steal the car from here. And then Charlie, the thing just took on a life. And said, well, why don't we do it here? If we do it there, we'll change.
Yeah.
So they decided to do it at Laguna Seca with a good size event. And they spent like 50 grand on this thing. They had a movie producer, a consultant, 4 actors, a Suburban with government plates, a Dodge Charger, a flatbed, and they all, that's the.
And you're just there for a track day with your Le Mans car.
With my car. And anyways, to make a long story short, they pranked me so hard. If anybody, they can go on YouTube. I think Motor Trend did a whole hour-long story on it.
Yeah.
And they can go Bruce Meyer prank Laguna Seca or 930, whatever it is. The whole story's there, but they got me so hard, George.
That is you say it's all about the people, and the people certainly have paid you back.
And with friends like that. So, anyways, it was just one of those memorable days. So I think Le Mans has been a focus of mine now lately.
Yeah. Now, are there some cars you've had that have got sentimental value to you? Like the first date, well, you don't have the first car you had. You took your wife out on a date, and maybe the first car you brought your daughter home in. I don't know. You have any cars like that in your collection?
Well, one of the things that I spent 10 years of my life doing was getting hot rods into Pebble Beach. And I became the world's greatest nuisance to Jules Human and Lauren Tryon and everybody at Pebble Beach. You've got to have hot rods at Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
And it was like,
when they're looking at you like you have 3 heads.
Annoying, awful Bruce Meyer. Like, God, I mean, read my lips. Over our dead body will we have hot rods at this elite show, Pebble Beach. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. 10 years of just being a complete nuisance. I get a fax from Lauren Tryon. Okay, Bruce, I have the fax. It's dated December. Are you sitting down? 1 year only, we're going to do hot rods at Pebble Beach. 1 year. Thank you very much. Help us put together a little assortment of hot rods, and then we'll be done with you, right?
Yeah.
So they put us at the farthest end of the show field, way down.
You're practically in Santa Barbara.
We're practically in Santa Barbara or the water. Anyways, it was the biggest hit there. I mean, all the fancy schmancy classic car guy, everybody was there. They were loving. Oh, I remember this, and I had one of those.
Absolutely.
It was a big thing.
But that's what makes Amelia Island so cool, because you have these weirdo cars.
I mean, Bill Warner is a soulmate. We are so similar.
I think there's like a race. Who's the nicest guy, you or Bill Warner?
I'd be happy to put in that, just considered like right there with him. Bill's a great guy. But he's had hot rods, but Pebble Beach was the first. And they did it, and it was a huge success. So the car that Pete Shaporis and I restored together and put in there was the Doane Spencer car. So that car to me is the most important hot rod in the world. It's the oldest, it's the most beautiful, and it really has a great,
What about the belly racer? You got a belly racer.
The belly tank.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing. And I don't think there's a picture of Pebble Beach, but that's a very significant car for SoCal Speed Shop.
Absolutely. I mean, that's tied with.
So I got a call from Pebble Beach.
This region of the world.
We want to do land speed record cars, the belly tank.
Yeah.
And can you get it running? I said, it runs. but I mean, I can't run it there. You have to push start it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put in a clutch and all this so I can go across the ramp. I said, forget it. I said, but I'll bring a push truck, and they're going. A truck on the lawn at Pebble Beach? No, that won't work. So I said, well, then forget about the car.
So you are literally the Beverly Hillbillies of Pebble Beach. That is who you are.
That's me.
You're no longer the emperor of the classic car world. You're the Beverly Hillbillies.
It's Clampett.
When do you first start getting involved in these car shows?
I've never been a car show guy because I don't like judging. I love the displaying. I love people getting together. Like on Rodeo Drive, we do an event every Father's Day.
Did you start that?
I was part of the group that started it.
How long ago did you start
I'm the last surviving member of the starting group. Because Winston Millett and Andy Cohen have died, and Jimmy Duffy. I'm the last.
But when did that start?
Wow. Probably 25 years ago, maybe more. There were a group of us, those 4 guys.
Yeah.
I'm included in that. We wanted to raise money to restore the first fire truck in Beverly Hills.
Uh-huh.
So we thought, well, we'll do a car show. So we did it at El Rodeo, which is a primary school. Then we moved it to the high school. And then I did a show for Ferrari on Rodeo. First time the street had ever been closed. And it was huge. And so we decided to move it onto Rodeo Drive. We have the most fabulous cars. It's free.
Yeah.
It's on Father's Day, so a father doesn't have to give an excuse why he wants to go to a car show.
Just drive the kid.
No excuses. Come on, we're doing it for Dad. We have close to 50,000 people in one day.
50,000?
Yeah. And the city of Beverly Hills, they're so technically on top of things.
Yeah.
They have facial ID. And last year we had 43,000 faces, and they didn't count the faces on 2 Rodeo, and they didn't count the faces on Wilshire. So we estimate there was probably another 3,000 or 4,000. So we were well over 40, probably closer to 50 than 40,000.
I don't know if I'm excited about this or terrified that a car show can recognize facial recognition.
Pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy. I will say I have ripped off your idea a little bit.
Good.
Yeah. As you know, I asked you this year to join it. We're trying to do something similar in Manhattan Beach, but to raise money for dogs for the Canine Foundation for Manhattan Beach Police.
Nice.
Yes. So next year, send me a car. It's not on Father's Day. It's not going to conflict with your thing.
Good.
But you got enough cars you can send me
I
a car.
can find one.
So let's go back to the car show. So this is one you started, the Father's Day show, but you seem to be involved in a number of larger car shows. Like I remember you were honored as Enthusiast of the Year, or I think Collector of the Year at Meadowbrook, or whatever St. John's, whatever they call it now. And then I've seen you at Amelia Island many years. When did you start getting involved in shows like that, or being part of Pebble Beach?
Sure. So I'm on they call it the steering committee, the little board for Pebble Beach. Mm-hmm. I don't do anything for Amelia Island other than bring cars whenever Bill calls. Because when he calls, you do what he says. He's such a sweet guy.
Yeah.
But I love the car shows that I can drive a car to. So those are the ones that I really do the most. And St. John's honored us, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. Larry Moss put that together. And it was a great show. We took 5 cars back. We were honored at Lime Rock. We brought like 5 cars to Lime Rock. Oh, yeah.
Great track.
And a great show.
Yeah.
And the day of the car show, it just poured rain, so there was no car show. So we brought all the cars back, and they stayed in the tent.
Yeah.
But I like car shows. I just don't like judged car shows. I like it when
Why is that?
Because I don't need people to tell me what's wrong with my cars. I don't want to tell people what's wrong with their cars. They're proud of the cars. They bring them there. I think people are more interested in just coming. Like, I like to drive my cars there, enjoy them, and share them, and drive them home. Now, I do go to, San Marino has a wonderful car show with Aaron.
Our friend Aaron does a nice job. He's got a cool collection.
Aaron's another wonderful enthusiast.
Great guy.
And so I've just never, I've not judged. I've been asked to judge. I just don't. Unless it's like a celebrity judge where you're just judging your favorite car or something like Art Center. But judge shows.
Are you officially involved on the board or anything with Art Center?
No. I underwrote a scholarship there, and I go to every show I can.
Now, again, here you got it. We got a book of your car collection. We got an amazing set of cars around us. Where do you see the classic car hobby going?
Good question. I don't spend a lot of time at that because I've got friends of mine say it's time to sell. A lot of guys rode that Porsche little. Porsches went up in value.
Yeah, 911s got crazy there for a while.
And now they're back to reality.
Yeah.
I think that classics, I think of like the Duesenbergs and Packards.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about them as far as future values or rising enthusiasm, just like the same with the brass cars.
And why is that?
I just think the younger people just don't care so much about
not that excited.
Almost all the cars we have, or the most cars, are performance cars and race cars and hot rods. The hot rods are mostly gray-haired old men like me, so I don't, I've never looked at these things as an investment. The first car we restored was the Pearson Brothers Coupe, and I never, people said, I can't believe you're spending money to restore this old Bonneville car. So I've never gone in it with the idea that I'm going to get rich. I'm going to restore that car and get rich. So for mankind, I've stayed with the hot rods because they're part of my passion for cars.
So once again, the caretaker.
The caretaker.
You are the caretaker. That's what you are.
That's what I'm doing, putting back. I'm preserving hot rods and hot rodding and hopefully help. But the air-cooled Porsches, like the RS beside me, I think probably has some life left in it because it's such a special car.
Do you see that becoming like the Gold? Like the Goldwing is a blue chip. I don't really see Goldwings going down significantly.
I agree.
Do you think that would get to that pantheon of
I
the
think
Goldwing?
Of the Porsche world, that's probably as close as you're going to get. And they made about 1,500 of these and 1,500 Goldwings, so it's probably similar.
So are you saying that it's cyclical, like the brass era had a time and went away, and then the classics had a time and now it's starting to go away? Same with the 50s. Is that where you see the?
Except that it's not cyclical. It won't. I don't see it coming back.
Yeah, coming back.
I don't. And now with electric cars.
Yeah. Which you have one now. I know this. I've got moles everywhere.
George.
Not that I don't like electric cars, but
well, let me tell you, I am so unhappy over the fact that I love it so much.
I can see you're really broken up by that. It changes your life, man.
Oh my God.
You don't go to the gas station anymore. Completely changes your behavior.
And
it's wonderful.
They're frisky.
Yeah.
They're fast.
Torque. Yeah.
So so what's going to happen is, in probably 10 years, all the cars will be electric, and these, who knows? They may just decide we don't want those things that just contaminate. They could even outlaw combustion cars.
Well, you're going to have to watch my recent episode of Bob Lutz. He has an answer for that.
Does he think there's a future for combustion engine cars?
He says private ownership of cars is going away, but not next year, like in 30 years.
Lutz is like a savant.
He is a savant. He can read the crystal ball.
Yeah, so I'd be, so a friend of mine says, Bruce, you should be selling this and that. You know what? I'm going to keep this stuff.
Do you trade? Do you buy and sell at auctions?
I've sold 2 cars. I sold Dennis Varney my D-Type Jaguar, big mistake, because I figured I had it for 13 years.
Yeah.
Figured, I was restoring that Silver Testarossa. I figured I don't have the room.
Oh, the one that's in here?
Yeah.
You sold that already? Oh.
No.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there sold.
Okay,
I'm done selling.
Yeah.
I sold the Speedster back to Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
And I don't really sell.
Again, we're going to change your name from the emperor of the classic car world to the Beverly Hillbillies of the classic car.
Not a hoarder.
And now you're the Warren Buffett of the class. You buy and you hold.
You buy good stuff. You buy the best example, and you hold it.
Okay.
That's
On that
me.
note, now we have to recap here. You've seen my episode, so you know what's coming. You have had, Bruce Meyer, an incredible journey. And I would argue timing is a big part of it. But what are 3 aspects that have led to the success of your life? Could be people, timing,
I'm
whatever.
I'm going to put number 1, going away my parents. Is that an okay answer?
That is a great answer.
Is that because I'm not sure? Okay, so the 3, it really my parents, the timing, and my family has put up with it. They haven't, So I wouldn't. I have a great loving family.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge testament. You have been married for 50 years.
Yes.
That says a lot right there, especially in a city like Los Angeles. You told me you got friends that have been married 3 times in the time you've been married once.
And I've tried to set an example of doing the right thing. I think.
What does that mean, doing the right thing?
Teach by example.
Oh, I agree. But what does that mean to you in terms of doing the right thing?
Living modestly within your means, in a God-fearing way. I'm very spiritual.
I didn't know this about you. I did not know this part about you.
So, I'm like...
Are you a church on Sundays kind of a guy?
That's interesting because my parents were not at all religious.
Okay.
At all religious. My family, I would say I have more Catholics than anything in my family. My wife is Presbyterian. And people say, well, what religion are you? I said, I'm the religion of gratitude. I prayed multiple times daily.
What does that mean? You sit and like have alone time?
I do. I just communicate with God. And thank God for who I am, where I am in my life.
Wow.
That is probably I spend more time expressing my appreciation than anything.
So would we count those as one of the three aspects as to your success of being Bruce Meyer?
Let me see. So let me recount. I have to think about this.
Definitely your parents.
100%.
100%. And now you got two more you can put in. You said timing. Is timing going to be one of them?
I think timing. I don't think I could. I have accomplished what I have in any other time in history than now. And then I would put. I mean, as tried as is God, you know.
You would put God in there. Okay.
I would.
Okay. That you are the first guest on this show that has acknowledged God, and that means a lot. I am a church on Sundays kind of a guy. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I talked our mutual friend, Craig Eckberg, to doing a formation flight over my church. So my church is the only church in the world that has its own Air Force.
Right.
I can't thank you enough. I've known you for many years, Bruce, but I did not know probably 50% of this story, and it is, you're right, timing, parents, and God. I love the answer there. Thank you much.
Oh, thank you, George. And, you know, we've been friends for a long time, and I've admired your style and just your warmth. I mean, we've sat here a long time, and it just seems like a few minutes because you make it so comfortable and you have such a sincere approach. And you're just a really special guy to me.
Many thanks for joining us throughout the entirety of this episode. And don't forget, subscribe, rate, and review Inside the MotoMan Studio on your favorite podcast directory. And while you're sharing, how about on your socials as well as on Reddit? Until our next incredible guest, be später.